Today we're going to be taking a deep look into the slow motion capabilities of the Insta360 X4. I've always believed that combining slow motion with 360 video creates incredibly dynamic and engaging content. The ability to shoot in 360 and then reframe your videos and combining that with slow motion really elevates your footage, makes it immersive and quite captivating. One common issue with past 360 cameras is that they have a relatively low resolution, not very many frame rate options, but the X4 does go some way to rectifying this. Not only can it shoot in 8K, which is a very high resolution, makes things look really sharp, there are also some high frame rate options. You can shoot 5.7K at 60 frames per second, which allows us to cut the speed in two and have some fairly decent high quality slow motion. And we also have a 4K at 100 frames per second mode too. Now that 4K 100 FPS is obviously the best for slow motion, but it will probably only really look good on a small screen like a phone. So if you're shooting for TikTok and Instagram, it will be still pretty good quality. But looking back on a laptop or desktop, the resolution probably not going to cut it. If we compare to a GoPro, probably the most popular small camera for shooting slow motion, the most recent GoPro Hero 13 can shoot 240 frames per second at 2.7K and 4K at 120 frames per second. So the quality is better and the frame rates are higher, but I still think the 360 element, the ability to reframe and combine those two elements together, makes this a pretty good option for slow motion footage. So as you can see, I've been showing you some slow motion shots that I've been shooting with this camera for the past year or so. And if you follow these steps that I'm about to show you, you can get some pretty high quality footage too. So obviously the advantage with this camera is the ability to track things. No matter where you point the camera, it's always going to be tracking. It's always going to be recording everything around you, allowing you to focus on something that you may have missed or focus on a particular object or person. And you are guaranteed to have that in the center of the frame at all times. And yes, I captured all this footage only using the X4 and actually this particular invisible selfie stick. That's really all you need. Even simple movements like running can look pretty dynamic when you combine 360 and slow motion together. So as I mentioned, you have those two different slow motion options, the 5.7K at 60 frames per second and 4K at 100 frames per second. Which one should you choose? Personally, I go for the 4K at 100 frames per second because 60 frames per second is fine, but the slow motion effect isn't that noticeable, and the 5.7K is slightly higher resolution. But if you want slow motion, you need to be shooting at least 100 frames per second, I believe. There's also a standout mode that's only available on Insta360 cameras for capturing slow motion content, and that is the bullet time mode. I've made videos on this mode before, but in the X4, the bullet time mode captures 5.7K at 120 frames per second, which is actually the best slow motion mode on this camera, but it's only available when you're creating these kind of Matrix-esque shots, which is done by using the bullet time handle or cord and literally spinning the camera above your head, and it automatically captures these kinds of shots. You don't need to do any editing. It is a bit more challenging to get this right. You probably need to practice a few times, and you need to make sure that your lenses are spotless, make sure there's no smudges or dust or anything on the lenses, or it will ruin your shots. But you know, if you're not really into shooting action stuff, like if you just use your camera for general vlogging, traveling, then you can still make use of the slow motion feature, because to be honest, I don't do that much action stuff. Apart from riding my bike, most of the stuff I shoot is for traveling. You can still use the slow motion feature wherever there's water, wherever there's something moving, even recording yourself. Using the tracking feature to track something in slow motion also works really well. Most of my slow motion footage has been that kind of stuff. Another awesome way to use slow motion with this camera is to combine it with the hyperlapse mode. Now, hyperlapse looks like this. It's another really awesome way to capture content using an Insta360 camera. Obviously, the super fast speed motion blur effect is actually really easy to shoot and edit on the X4. If you want to combine hyperlapse and slow motion, select the 5.7K 60 frames per second option in the video settings. Find somewhere interesting to walk around, for example, in the middle of a busy city, and walk around for about 5 minutes to capture that footage. Now, when editing, you can select most of your footage to be that hyperlapse effect. That is that fast motion. Usually the camera position is pointing forwards. Then when you see something moving, for example, a car, a bus, a person, whatever you want to capture, you then do a little slow motion effect, slowing it down by half, and then returning to that fast motion hyperlapse effect. This is kind of what it looks like in the editor, and the combination of the two, I think, works really, really well. You'll probably need a couple of practice runs of editing, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to do. A quick tip to enhance the quality of your slow motion footage with the X4 is when reframing your videos, zoom out slightly. This helps preserve sharpness at the center of your frame. The edges might appear slightly warped, but overall your footage will look sharper and more dynamic, especially when viewed on a smaller screen. There is also an option in the Insta360 app called freeze frame. This is perfect for skiing and snowboarding videos, but could be used in other scenarios as well. It basically automatically adds some slow motion and a kind of panning effect. So you may be facing forward, the footage will slow down, spin around, and focus on something else, still maintaining that slow motion, then return to a normal speed. And this is, again, an automatic feature in the app, a great way to use that slow motion effect. So another tip is this is a general tip for all your videos, but to color correct your footage after you've shot, because this will really boost the quality. This can be done either in the Insta360 app or in the desktop studio, which has its own built-in color corrector. Messing around with the highlights, the saturation, shadows can really make your videos pop more and just distract from the fact that it's slightly lower resolution than other cameras like a GoPro or a DJI. And finally, use the best possible export options to get the most out of your camera. Opt for 4K resolution. If you're intending on editing further, select the ProRes format. This will make your files very large, but the image quality boost is worth it if you're going to keep editing in another editor. If you're going to upload straight away, then you can select H.265. Now, one of the limitations for shooting slow motion with this camera is the lighting conditions. It's simply not going to work very well in low light. Shooting at a high frame rate requires a lot of light, and the camera is just not capable of capturing the amount of light that's required for smooth slow motion in dark environments. But it does really shine in bright environments where there's a lot of action. For example, skiing, snowboarding, it's just perfect for those kinds of activities. Cycling, I use it for cycling, another great way. But even stuff like running, if you just run through some water, you can make that shot look really, really good with the 360 and slow motion combined together. When you learn those editing tricks, it's going to make your footage stand out from the crowd. If you want to learn how to get the most out of this camera, remember I have my Insta360 video course, which has over 70 lessons now. It's always growing. Some really detailed tutorials in that course, much longer than my YouTube videos, teaching you exactly how to get some amazing effects with your X4 or any Insta360 camera. I'll be including some much more detailed slow motion guides as well in there, so check that out if you're interested. The link is in the description below. But that's it, guys. That is my overview of the slow motion features in the X4. Hopefully in the future, while these cameras get better and better, we'll have higher frame rate options at higher resolution, because that really is the limitation right now. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and give this video a like if it helps, and feel free to subscribe. I've got plenty more tutorials of this and many other cameras coming. So see you next time.